Be Attentive, Series 6, Volume 18, November 12, 1925. My daughter, be attentive in doing your acts in my will. You must know that for the one who is called to be the head of a mission, the more he encloses of the good pertaining to that mission, the more good he will be able to communicate to others. Those goods will be like many seeds, which he will lend to others, so that whoever has the fortune of wanting to acquire those seeds may become the possessor of the harvest of those seeds. Volume 18, November 12, 1925. Now, my daughter, just as it was with redemption, so it will be with my will. In order to make it known, and to make it reign as prime act of life in the creature, the fulfillment of the acts is needed. You too, on the example of my celestial mamma and of mine, must embrace in my will all the acts done in the Old Testament, those of the Queen of Heaven, those done by me, those which are done and will be done by all the good and the saints, up to the last day. And upon each one of them you will place your seal of requital of love, of blessing, of adoration, with the sanctity and the power of my will. Nothing must escape you. My will embraces everything. You too must embrace everything and every one, and place my will alone at the first place of honor upon all the acts of creatures. It will be your imprint, with which you will imprint the image of my will on all the acts of creatures. Therefore your field is vast. I want to see you in my will, flowing over all the graces and the prodigies which I did in the Old Testament, to give me your requital of love and of thanksgiving, and in the acts of the patriarchs and prophets, to make up for their love. There is not one act in which I do not want to find you. I would not be satisfied nor content if I did not find you in all the acts of creatures which have been done and will be done. Nor would you be able to say that you have completed everything in my will. You would lack something of the true living in my will. Therefore be attentive, if you want the fullness of light to be enough as to be able to illuminate all peoples with the sun of my will. The one who wants to give light to all must embrace all, as though in one single embrace, by making himself life and substitution of everything and of everyone. Is my will perhaps not life of everything? And is this life not requited with so many bitternesses? Is there not the need, then, for one who would flow in every one, in order to sweeten these bitternesses, by substituting, as act of life with my own will, for each act of the ungrateful creature? Volume 18, November 19, 1925. To live in my will is precisely this, to keep company with all the acts which my will does. My will does not want to live isolated in the midst of creation, but wants the company of the creature, because of whom, because it loves her so much, it maintains the order of the whole creation, and makes itself life of each thing. And when it finds the soul who keeps it company in this life, which it maintains in the whole universe, my will rejoices, makes feast, and feels happy. It finds the one whom it loves, and by whom it is loved in return. It finds the one to whom it can make itself known, and what it possesses, and in its happiness it narrates to the soul the secrets of its volition, its value, and its surprising effects. But this is nothing. As it narrates its knowledges, what it does and what it is, so it makes to her the donation of what it manifests to her. More than a valid script, it is knowledge itself that has impressed in the soul, with characters of light, the possession of the goods which the knowledge of it contains. Oh, how beautiful it is to see the sanctity, the power, the immensity of my will dwell with the littleness of the human will, in the act in which it keeps it company. It wants to give always. It never stops. It wants to see the littleness beautiful, rich, powerful. It wants to keep it always close to itself, to be able to give to it always. There is nothing more beautiful, more gracious, more surprising to be seen than a soul who tries to follow the acts of the will of her Creator. There is a continuous contest between them, a reciprocal love, a continuous giving and receiving. Oh, if you knew how rich you are! As many things as you know about my will, so many goods do you possess, and if you enumerate them, you will get lost and will remain drowned within them. Therefore be attentive in following the acts of my will, if you want to keep it continuous company. Volume 18, December 6, 1925. Once my will was removed, which binds everyone and links everything, entered disorder, confusion, disunion, weakness, darkness. Poor heaven of creatures, it can no longer be recognized, and only the living in my will shall reorder this heaven again, and will make it shine with new light. This is why I tell you that I want to find everyone and everything in you. My will, primary act of all celestial and terrestrial creatures, will bring you the communication of all their acts, and you will remain bound to them, and they to you. So the living in my will encloses everything and everyone. Therefore be attentive, for I want to give you the greatest thing that exists, but I want from you great things and highest attention. One who gives much, much wants to receive. Volume 18, December 25th, 1925. Knowledge prepares the way. Knowledge is like the contract I want to make of the gift I want to give. And the more knowledge I send to the soul, the more she is spurred on to desire the gift, and to solicit the divine writer to place the final signature, that the gift is hers, and she possesses it. So the sign that in these times I want to give this gift of my will is the knowledge of it. Therefore, be attentive not to let anything escape you of what I manifest to you about my will, if you want me to place the final signature on the gift which I yearn to give to creatures. Suppose you were operating in a place upon which the sun spread its solar light. You see its light in front of you, above and behind you, on the right and on the left. If you wanted to see which was the part of the light of the sun that surrounded you completely, you would not be able to find it or distinguish it. You could only say that the light was certainly upon you. Now, that light was there from the first instant in which the sun was created, and it is, and will be. If your act could convert into solar light as it converts into divine light, would you be able to find your particle of light and the light which was given to you by the sun in order to let you operate? Certainly not. However, you know that an act has come out of you, which was incorporated into the light of the sun. This is why I say that the living in the Supreme Volition is the greatest thing. It is to live divine life. As soon as he sees the soul in his will, the celestial Creator takes her in his arms, and placing her on his lap, he lets her operate with his very hands, and with the power of that Fiat with which all things were made. He lets all his reflections descend upon the creature, in order to give her the likeness of his operating. This is why the operating of the creature becomes light. It unites to that single act of her Creator, and constitutes itself eternal glory and continuous praise of her Creator. Therefore be attentive, and let the living in my will be for you your all, that you may never descend from your origin, that is, from the lap of your Creator. Volume 18, February 7th, 1926. My continuous calling you into my will, so that not yours, but mine may live in you. My wanting from you that you let me find the note of your I love you, of your adoration for your Creator, of your reparation for each offense, upon all created things, and from the first to the last man that will come. Does this not say in clear notes that I want everything in order, to give you everything, and that raising you above everything, I want my will to be restored in you, whole, beautiful, triumphant, just as it came out of us in the beginning of creation? My will was the prime act of the creature. The creature had her prime act in my will, and therefore it wants to do its course of life in her. And even though it was suffocated at its very first arising in the creature, it was not extinguished, and therefore it awaits its field of life in her. Don't you want to be its first little field? Therefore be attentive. When you want something, never do it on your own, but pray to me that my will may do it in you. In fact, that same thing, if you do it yourself, sounds bad, gives of human. But if my will does it, it sounds good. It harmonizes with heaven. It is sustained by a divine grace and power. It is the Creator that operates in the creature. Its fragrance is divine, and rising everywhere it embraces everyone with one single embrace, in such a way that all feel the good of the operating of the Creator in the creature. Volume 18, February 11th, 1926. Now, if you wanted to do an act of your will, not connected with mine, you would come to form the woodworm to the mission which I have entrusted to you, and like a second Adam, you would ruin the root of the tree of my will, which I want to form in you, and would jeopardize all those who will want to graft themselves to this tree, because they would not find all the fullness of my will in the one whom it had its beginning. Therefore it is I who cast this fear into your soul, so that my will may always be dominant in you, and all the manifestations which I have made to you may always be in vegetation, in order to form the divine root, trunk, branches, flowers, and fruits, without the shadow of your human will. In this way you would return to your origin, into the womb of your Creator, all beautiful, grown, and formed with the fullness of the Supreme Will. And the divinity, satisfied in you of the work of the creation of man, would make its chosen people of the Fiat Voluntas Tua on earth as it is in heaven come out from you, and from the mission entrusted to you. Therefore be attentive, my daughter, and do not want to ruin the work of my will in you. I love it so much, and it costs me so much, that I will use all my infinite jealousies. I myself will guard my will, so that yours may never have life. Volume 18, February 21st, 1926. Your continuous acts in my will are abundant nourishment in order to first form these children of heaven within yourself, and then deliver them as triumph, honor, glory, and crown of my will, and as perennial joy of the mother who delivered them. See, then, what each additional manifestation means. It is one more birth that my will delivers. It is a divine life that goes out for the good of creatures. It is to debilitate the strengths of the human will, in order to establish in it the fortress of the divine will. How attentive, then, you must be not to disperse anything, even from the smallest manifestations I make to you, because you would deprive me of the honor of having one more child, which can narrate to all one more good about my will, in order to give it to creatures, that they might love it more and let themselves be subdued by the power of my supreme volition. Volume 19, February 28, 1926. My daughter, do not lose time, because every time you occupy yourself with yourself, it is an act of my will that you lose. And if you knew what it means to lose one single act in my will, you lose a divine act, that act which embraces everything and everyone, and which contains all the goods that exist in heaven and on earth. More so, since my will is a continuous act which never stops its course, nor can it wait for you when you stop with your fears. It is more appropriate for you to follow it in its continuous course than for it to wait for you to place yourself on the way in order to follow it. And not only do you lose time, but having to pacify you and to raise you from your fears in order to put you on the way in my will, you force me to occupy myself with things which do not regard the supreme volition. Your very angel who is near you remains on an empty stomach, because every act you do in it, as you follow its course, is one more accidental beatitude which he enjoys, being near you. And it is a doubled paradise of joys that you offer him, in such a way that he feels happy in his destiny of having you in his custody. And since the joys of heaven are communal, your angel offers the accidental beatitude he has received from you, his doubled paradise, to the whole celestial court as the fruit of the divine will of his protected one. All make feast and magnify and praise the power, the sanctity, the immensity of my will. Therefore be attentive. In my will one cannot lose time. There is much to do. You have to follow the act of a god, which is never interrupted. My daughter, it is just for the one who is born in my will to know the secrets it contains. And besides, the thing in itself is very easy, and as though natural. Suppose that you went to live in a house, either for a short time or forever, in which there is beautiful music and a fragrant air, through which one feels infused with new life. Indeed, you had not put that music or that balsamic air in it, but since you find yourself in that house, which is not yours, you come to enjoy both the music and the fragrant air, which regenerates your strengths to new life. Add that this house contains enchanting paintings, beautiful things that enrapture, gardens which you had never seen before, with so many different plants and flowers that it is impossible to count them all. Delicious lunches which you had never enjoyed before. Oh, how you amuse yourself, how you delight and enjoy yourself in admiring so many beauties, in savoring food so tasty. However, of all this, nothing was made or placed by you. Yet you take part in everything just because you are in that house. Now, if this happens in the natural order, much more easily can it happen in the supernatural order of my will. By entering into it, the soul forms one single act with the divine will, and as though naturally, she takes part in what it does and contains. More so, since in order to live in my will, the soul is first stripped of the garments of the old guilty Adam, and is clothed anew with the garments of the new and holy Adam. Her garment is the light of the supreme will itself, through which all its divine manners are communicated to her, which are noble and communicative to all. This light makes her lose the human features, and restores in her the physiognomy of her Creator. What is the wonder, then, if you take part in all that the divine will possesses, since one is the life and one the will? Therefore be attentive. I recommend to you, be always faithful to me, and your Jesus will keep the pace of making you live always in my will. I will be on guard, that you may never go out of it. Volume 19, March 9th, 1926. Now you must know that our love wants to play this risky game with you also, so that you, united with the celestial Mamma, may let us win the game, by allowing us to make up for the failure which the first man, Adam, caused us, and so that our will, restored in its victories, may place its goods in the field once again, which with so much love it wants to give to creatures. And just as through the Holy Virgin, because I had made up in my game, I made the sun of redemption rise in order to save the lost humanity, in the same way through you, I will make the sun of my will rise again, that it may follow its course in the midst of creatures. This is the reason for so many graces of mine that I will pour into you, and for the many knowledges about my will. It is nothing else but my risky game, which I am forming in you. Therefore be attentive, that you may not cause me the greatest sorrow I could receive in the whole history of the world, the failure of my second game. Ah, no, you will not do this to me. My love will be victorious, and my will shall find its fulfillment. Volume 19, March 14th, 1926. So, you will be the voice of the heavens, and echoing from one point to another, it will make your word heard, which resounding through the whole celestial atmosphere will say, I love, I glorify, I adore my Creator. You will be the voice of each star, of the sun, of the wind, of the thunder, of the sea, of plants, of mountains, of everything, repeating continuously, I love, I bless, I glorify, I adore, I thank the one who created us. Oh, how beautiful will be the voice of my newborn of my will, of the little daughter of my volition, in all things. It will render the whole creation speaking, and creation will be more beautiful than if I had given it the use of the word. I love you so much that I want to hear your voice in the sun, loving, adoring, glorifying. I want to hear it in the celestial spheres, in the murmuring of the sea, in the darting of the fish, in the bird that sings and warbles, in the lamb that bleats, the turtle dove that moans. I want to hear you everywhere. I would not be content if, in all created things, in which my will has first place, I did not hear the voice of my little newborn, who, rendering the whole creation speaking, gives me love for love, glory and adoration for each thing created by me. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. I have given you much, and much do I want. Your mission is great. It is the life of my will that must be carried out in you, which embraces everything and possesses everything. Volume 19, March 19th, 1926. My daughter, it is necessary that you manifest this, not for yourself, but for the decorum and the sanctity which befit my will. Do you think that all the crafting I have done in your soul, for 40 years and more, has been only for yourself, and for the love I had and do have for you? Ah, no, it has been above all for the decorum of that which befitted my will, so that in coming to reign in you, it would find my crafting, my incessant prayers inviting it to come, the throne of my works and of my pains, on which it might dominate and form its dwelling, the light of its very knowledge, so that it might find in you its honors and its very divine glory. Therefore my many manifestations about the supreme will were necessary for the decency that befitted it. Creation, redemption, and the Fiat Voluntas Tua on earth as it is in heaven symbolize the sacrosanct Trinity. In fact, just as the divine persons are inseparable from one another, so these works are inseparable from one another. Each one gives the hand to the other. Each one helps the other. The triumph, the glory, belongs to all three of them. And since our will has held the primary place in all our works, creation and redemption remain eclipsed, and as though dissolved within the immensity and the endlessness of the supreme will. Our will envelops everything and keeps the very things done by us as its throne, from which it reigns and dominates. So if our will is everything, why are you surprised that it will produce greater fruits than our other works? And man will receive that life which he has, but does not know, because he keeps it as though compressed, drowned, weakened, while it moans and sighs, because it wants to carry out its life, but it is not allowed to do so. Therefore be attentive, because the knowledge of my will shall shake man, and will be like cement on the woodworm, which original sin produced in the tree of the human generations, so that once the root has been strengthened, the creature may allow that life, which she had rejected with so much ingratitude, to live within herself. You have reached the end of the Be Attentive series, Volume 18 and Part 1 of Volume 19. Fiat.